Namaskar children, good morning. So I hope you read your textbook children. I hope you are clear with the part which I taught you in the last class. So what did we learn in the last class children? We studied about the complex tissue. So complex tissue, it includes xylem and phloem, right? And then we studied about the tissue system. We started tissue system, right? So what was the difference about the part which we learned in the earlier part of the chapter and about this tissue system? So in the earlier part, we were discussing about the types of tissues based on the type of cell present in them, right? And here in tissue system, we are going to consider how tissues vary depending on their location in the plant body. And depending upon their location, their structure and function will also differ. So on the basis of their structure and location, there are three types of tissue system. And what are the three types of tissue system? Epidermal tissue system, the ground or the fundamental tissue system, the vascular or conducting tissue system. So this is the three different types of tissue system, right? So now let us see about the first one, which is the epidermal tissue system. So this epidermal tissue system, it forms the outermost covering of the whole plant body. And what does it comprise of? It includes epidermal cells, stomata, epidermal appendages. And these epidermal appendages includes trichomes and root hairs, right? So it forms the outermost covering of the whole plant body. Which one? It is the epidermis, right? And what does it include? It includes epidermal cell, stomata and the epidermal appendages, or the trichomes and the root hairs. Okay, and we learnt about the epidermis in detail, right? So first was the epidermal cells. We will be learning about that in detail, and then we studied about stomata and then about the epidermal appendages also. So if you take the case of epidermis, as we told, it is the outermost layer of the primary plant body, and this epidermis is usually single layered. And how are their cells? They are made up of elongated, compactly arranged parenchymatous cell with few cytoplasm lining the cell wall and a large vacuole. Okay, so they are made up of compactly arranged parenchymatous cell. I hope you remember about the simple tissues which we learned, that is parenchyma, collenchyma and sclerenchyma. After this part, we will be using those terms again and again, right? So this epidermis, it is made up of elongated, compactly arranged parenchymatous cell. And how's the cell? They will have few cytoplasm which is lining the cell wall and a large vacuole. And the outside of the epidermis is often covered with a waxy thick layer which is called as cuticle. And why is this cuticle present? It will prevent the loss of water. And cuticle is absent in the root portion. Coming to stomata, we know that these are pores which is present in the epidermis of leaf, and their main function is to regulate transpiration and gaseous exchange. And the singular form of stomata is stoma, and it is made up of two bean-shaped cells or the guard cells. So it is a pore, right? So it is a hole. So that hole is made with the help of the two bean-shaped cell, which is the guard cell. And in grasses, the guard cells will be of dumbbell-shaped. Okay, and we saw that the outer wall of the guard cell, which is away from the stomatal pore, are thin, and inner wall are thick, right? And what does this guard cell possess? They possess chloroplast, and they regulate the closing and opening of the stomata. And sometimes some epidermal cells which are surrounding the guard cell will become specialized in shape and size, and they form the subsidiary cells. So stomatal aperture, guard cell and the subsidiary cell together, we are calling it as stomatal apparatus. Okay, and we learnt about epidermal appendages also. So it includes the root hairs. So these are unicellular elongations at the epidermal cells. And what is their function? They help to absorb water and minerals from the soil. And what about trichomes? So these are epidermal hairs on the stem portion. In root, it is called as root hair, and in stem, it is called as trichomes. And they are usually multicellular, branched or unbranched, and soft or stiff. And they may be secretory also. And what is the function of them? They will prevent water loss due to transpiration. So this is what we learnt in the first tissue system, which is the epidermal tissue system. Now let us move on to the next tissue system, which is the ground tissue system, right? So the all tissues which except this epidermis and vascular bundle. So except epidermism, except the vascular bundle also. It means that except xylem and phloem, the other tissues will constitute the ground tissue. Okay, so all tissues except epidermis and vascular bundles constitute the ground tissue. Okay, അപ്പോൾ ഇത് രണ്ടും ഒഴികെ വാസ്കുലർ ബണ്ടൽസ് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് സൈലം ആൻഡ് ഫ്ലോയം, അതും ആ ടിഷ്യൂസും അതുപോലെ തന്നെ എപ്പിഡേർമസ് ഒഴികെ ബാക്കിയുള്ള എല്ലാ ടിഷ്യൂസും ഇറ്റ് വിൽ കം അണ്ടർ ദ ഗ്രൗണ്ട് ടിഷ്യൂ. ഓക്കെ, ആൻഡ് ദീസ് ഇറ്റ് കൺസിസ്റ്റ് ഓഫ് സിമ്പിൾ ടിഷ്യൂസ്. സോ അപ്പോൾ ഈ ഗ്രൗണ്ട് ടിഷ്യൂസിൽ എന്തെല്ലാം ടൈപ്പ് ഓഫ് ടിഷ്യൂസ് ഉണ്ടാവുക? ഇറ്റ് കൺസിസ്റ്റ് ഓഫ് സിമ്പിൾ ടിഷ്യൂ. വി നോ ദാറ്റ് സിമ്പിൾ ടിഷ്യൂ ഇസ് ഡിവൈഡഡ് ഇൻ ടു 3: parenchyma, collenchyma and sclerenchyma. So this ground tissue are made of simple tissues, which is parenchyma, collenchyma and sclerenchyma. And if you take the case of this parenchymatous cell, they are usually present in cortex, pericycle, pith and medullary ray, and that too in the primary stems and roots. We will be learning about what is cortex, what is pericycle, pith and medullary ray in the detail in the coming part. Right? So what type of cells is found there? In cortex, pericycle, pith and medullary ray, parenchymatous cells are found, and these are seen in the primary stems and roots. Right? So it is seen in this parenchyma cells are seen in stem and roots. And in leaves, if you take the case of leaves, the ground tissue consists of thin-walled chloroplast containing cells and is called as mesophyll. You can see in this picture, right? So they have written as spongy mesophyll and palisade mesophyll, right? So these are the tissues which we find in the leaves. So the ground tissue consists of thin-walled chloroplast containing cell and is called as mesophyll. Right? Understood it? So tissues other than epidermis and vascular bundle will come under the ground tissue. Clear? Now let us move on to a major part of the tissue system, which is the vascular tissue system. So this is very important part in this chapter. You will be learning about the vascular tissue system, that too in monocot, dicot, stem, root and leaf. Right? So let us start with the vascular tissue system. So if you see this vascular tissue system, we know that vascular tissues include the complex tissues, which is the xylem and phloem. Okay, so it consists of the complex tissues which are xylem and phloem, and xylem and phloem together they constitute the vascular bundles. We commonly call them as vascular bundles. Xylem and phloem together they will constitute the vascular bundle. Okay, now let us see an important word which we have learnt in the earlier part of this chapter. When we were discussing about the meristematic tissue, children, we told about the secondary or the lateral meristem. I hope you remember it, right? So apical meristem, intercalary meristem and the secondary or the lateral meristem. And do you remember that these secondary meristems are formed in the later stages of the plant? Right? So in primary meristems are the apical meristem and intercalary meristem, and the secondary or the lateral meristem will form later than the primary meristem. I hope you remember it. And we saw the examples of this secondary meristem. It was fascicular vascular cambium, interfascicular cambium and the cork cambium. Right? So we will be discussing about the cambium in the coming part of the chapter, but this word called as cambium has a very big role to play in the vascular tissue system. So based on the presence or absence of cambium, okay, so based on the presence or absence of cambium, vascular bundles are of two types. Right? Vascular bundles means xylem and phloem together. Okay, xylem and phloem together they constitute the vascular bundles, And based on the presence or absence of cambium, vascular bundles are of two types. One is the open type and the other one is the closed type. Understood it? So based on the presence or absence of cambium. Okay, cambium എന്ന് പറയുന്ന cylindrical meristums ഉണ്ടോ ഇല്ലയോ എന്ന് ബേസ് ചെയ്തിട്ട് vascular bundles are of two type. Okay, and what are they called as? They are called as open type and the closed type. Which is the open vascular bundle and the closed vascular bundle. Right? So we will learn how the open and closed vascular bundle will be in the plants. So if you take the case of this open vascular bundle, in this the cambium is present between the phloem and xylem. If you see in this picture, children, you can see this is the open vascular bundle, and you can see the red portion which is xylem and the blue portion which is the phloem. And in between, can you see a pink shaped, that is pink colored part? That is called as cambium. Okay, so where does this cambium occur? It is present between the phloem and xylem. Phloethindim xylethindim centerlana idu place aayittundavuka. Right? So in this cambium is present between phloem and xylem. So vascular bundles can form secondary xylem and phloem tissue. So it is a meristematic tissue. So what they will do? They will be forming many phloems here and xylems in this direction also. Okay, so vascular bundles can form secondary xylem and phloem tissues using the cambium. Primary ഉണ്ട്, ആ primary നടുക്കാണ് ഈ tissues വരുന്നത്, and they can give rise to the secondary xylem and phloem tissue. Clear? Clear with the open vascular bundle, children? So clear with the children? So in the open type vascular bundle, we can see the presence of cambium, which is a meristematic tissue. Meristematic tissue, you know that they can give rise to new cells. So towards the phloem, they will be forming the secondary phloem, and towards the xylem, they will be forming the secondary xylem. Right? We have studied in the secondary meristem. We told that the secondary meristems are formed to increase the width of the stem portion. I hope you remember about it, right? So it helps in increasing the width of the stem portion, and along with that, increased formation of new cells will happen in both sides, that is in phloem and the xylem, and secondary xylem and the secondary phloem are formed. Right? Now, example of the plants where we see this cambium is dicotyledonous stem portion. So in the dicotyledon stem portion, we can find such a type of vascular bundle, that is open type vascular bundle. Right? Now let us learn about the closed type vascular bundle. So in this, the cambium is absent. You can see it here. This is the closed vascular bundle. Here we don't see the presence of a cambium here. Okay, so hence if there is no cambium, it means that they do not form the secondary tissue. Okay, so as due to the absence of this cambium, we can say that they will not produce the secondary tissue. Okay, and when cambium is present, it produces the secondary tissue, that is secondary phloem and the secondary xylem. And in case of the parts where the cambium is absent, or plants where the cambium is absent, we can say that they do not form the secondary tissue. Okay, an example of plants who have a closed type vascular system is monocotyledons. So in dicotyledonous stem, we can find the open type vascular bundle, and in monocotyledons, we see closed type vascular bundle. Clear with that? Okay, now let us move on to the next part. So based on presence or absence of cambium, it is of two type. One is open type vascular bundle, the other one is closed type vascular bundle. Now we are going to learn about the arrangement of xylem and phloem. So based on the arrangement of xylem and phloem, എങ്ങനെയാണ് ഒരു portion, that is in the stem portion or the root portion or the leaf portion, how is the arrangement of xylem and phloem? Depending on that or based on that, vascular bundles are of two types, right? So one is radial type and the other one is the conjoint type. Okay, so radial type vascular bundle and the other one is the conjoint type vascular bundle. right? Now let us see about the radial and the conjoint type vascular